Welcome all, Bernie here from EWPRO. Getting straight into the weekly outlook. DXY on the daily time frame, nothing's changed. I'm looking for a correction in here, similar size to this over here, and then a Z up for a WXY, X2 and a Z up. There is a chance that we get this C down as well, like I've mentioned, and this is all the correction, and we get an A, B, C. The way the price action is on the lower time frames, though, I'm going with this larger correction before we get that Z up. On the H4, nothing's changed since last weekly outlook. We had this 5 down in here, and I'm looking for an A, a B, and a C up before we get more downside. We sort of have 3 up in here. We have like 1, 2, 3. So you have to wait for a wave 4, and then you could trade a wave 5 up. AU on the daily time frame. Looking for all this as a B wave before we get an A, B, C. Like I've mentioned previously, I'm not convinced that this is the low. H4, we got a nice impulse up, but we're coming straight back down. There is a possible bull hidden forming here. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a correction here, a very deep correction to this here, and then possibly come down and break the low. The bull hidden may play out and go and break the top, and we could trade that. But at this stage, there is no confirmation of that bull hidden, and it's just one wave down. There is no buy set up on this at this stage. On the M15, we could look for a buy. We do have bullish divergence here. We have bullish divergence in here. So if we get a nice impulse up in here and then a correction, well, then we could start to look for the buy in that correction. So I'd be looking for the buy on the shorter time frames and seeing how far it goes in the shorter term. Just waiting for my internet to kick in. There we go. GU, very similar to AU on the daily time frame, looking for a C up, but like I've mentioned, I'm not convinced that this here is the low. We're in this channel here, like I mentioned last week. We do have bearish divergence here, so I'd be looking for a sell to go and break this low. H1, we may get a sell set up next week, early next week. We got a nice impulse down, so if we get a correction in here, we can look for, well, it possibly will turn into a motive wave or an impulse. So really next week, I'd be looking for a correction in here and then a sell set up to sell. If you have a look on the M15, we already have 5 down. We have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. So like I mentioned, we get a larger correction than these over here, and then I'd be looking for a sell, possibly to go and break the low, like I've mentioned. EU, looking at this A, B, C. But again, like I've mentioned many times the last few weeks, this is looking corrective, excuse me, to go and break the low. I've had this correction on here for quite some time. I actually had one going up here as well, up to that 100 fib, but I've taken that one off, that arrow. But I'm looking for an A, B, C, and then a possibly A, B, C here before we get more downside. So this correction still may turn more complex, and we may get another one up in here before we go and break that low. But at this stage, I'd be looking for the sell, very similar to GU. We got a nice impulse from a top. So again, Monday, Tuesday, I'd be looking for a correction in here and looking for at least a C down. And more than likely, it'll turn motive, and we'll get what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. Well, if I quickly go down to the M15, very similar to GU, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's fine. Looking for a larger correction in here before we look for the sell. And you, similar to the others, I'm looking at all this as the B wave, an A, a B, and a C up. Longer term, I'm looking for that C up. But like on all the other majors, I haven't been convinced that this is the low. And as you can see here, we got a nice impulse down. So it's very similar to the others. This one's pretty much very close to that low. So you'd want a nice correction in here and look for a sell to go and break that low. Very similar to the others. I won't go down all the time frames. It's virtually the same as AU, GU, and EU and New Zealand dollar. GY on the daily. This is I've pretty much been staying out of this. This is a correction in here. So this can turn more complex. We get an A, a B, and a C up in here, some sort of a flat before we get sort of 1, 2, 3. Or it may turn more complex. We get 1, 2, 3 in here as a flat, then an A, B, C, A, B, C. This can turn really complex before we get that one down. So you can see how complex this may become. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does become quite complex. It's virtually untradeable at this stage. The way I teach to trade, it's virtually untradeable. The reason I say that is because this low hasn't been broken again. We had that bear hidden in here. Like I mentioned last week, we've got a very deep correction to this move up in here. So there's a couple of different scenarios here. This either comes down and breaks that low, which more than looks like a B wave, how choppy it is, or we just get a regular flat as an A, a B, and a C up in here before we get more downside. So until you get this C up in here and then a sell set up on the lower time frames, then you could look for a sell. As for the buy, I mean, you could scalp it on the lower time frames if you got a nice setup. If I can get me internet to work. Can scalp it, like I said. The upside, we got a nice impulse from a low. We got all the bullish divergence, so that's fine. We get an A, get a B in here, a C down, and then you could look for a buy on the lower time frame. So it's pretty much just a C up. It may turn motive for that flat, like I just showed, but then I'd be looking for a sell. UY, This is very difficult here to we got bearish divergence on the UY on the daily. This was looking very choppy here though. I can't really look at this as a flat in here because this is too sharp. It's too impulsive. This looks more like a B wave than what that does. So this is quite difficult. It could really go either way. At this stage, we do have a bull hidden on the H4. I'll go down to the lower time frames to see if there's any sort of a buy set up on it. There isn't. This is too choppy. Like you can see how choppy this in here is. This is like a flat in here. So we get like 1, 2, 3. You got to wait for a wave 4, and then you could trade a wave 5 up, just scalping, and then I'd be looking for a sell. Very similar to GY. USD CAD. On the daily, we're looking at this 1, 2, 3. We're waiting for a wave 4 in here, and then we look for that wave 5 up. It's a time factor. We're waiting for this time factor. On the lower time frames, I was looking for a correction in here for the last, well, probably 3 weeks. We had this nice impulse down, and I was just looking for a correction in here. This has started to turn motive. There is no bear hidden. On the H1, you'd be looking for a wave 4 and then looking for a wave 5. We got some sort of 1, 2, 3. So you got to wait for a wave 4 and then trade a wave 5 up. You really have to wait for this correction before you look for a buy. So at this stage, there really isn't much. You know, I dare say on the lower time frames, we're getting divergence, and we are. So M15, we're getting that bearish divergence in here. So if we got a nice impulse down correction, well, then you could look for, at least a C down. More than likely a turn motive in that wave 4 I just showed on the higher time frame, and then I'd be looking for the buy to go and break that top in the wave 5. But at this stage, we've got that bearish divergence. I wouldn't be looking for longs. I'd be looking for a sell setup. If I got a nice, like I mentioned, if I got a nice impulse down and a correction, I could look for a sell. I'd be more interested in a sell than a buy. USD Swiss franc, we're waiting for this B wave in here, and then I'll look for that C up. We're getting this correction in here. Like I mentioned, this can be a flat, and it looks like it's going to turn into that flat that I've been talking about. Sort of had, my pen's not working real well. We got 1, 2, sort of got 5 down in there. So I'm looking for this A, B, C up as a flat before we get an A, B, C. Want to see a nice correction for this B wave. So yeah, it's going to be risky if you're buying. You're sort of just buying to the 100 fib, and then I'd be more interested in the sell if I could get my pen to work. But I think you know what I'm looking at. So yeah, I'm looking for a flat in here. It's more on the lower time frame. You sort of got 1, 2, 3. You got to wait for a wave 4 and then trade a wave 5 up. You have to wait for this, because on the lower time frames, we'd already be getting bearish divergence in there. So you got to wait for a correction in here, similar size to this over here, and then you can look for that wave 5 up. scalping really, because we're in that larger daily B wave. So it's just scalping the upside. E.g., it's actually come down and broken this low on the lower time frames. But I was looking for buys. We had all this bullish divergence in here. It got a nice impulse up, but this has come straight back down. On the lower time frame, there was a possible bull hidden here, but that's been taken out now. I've pretty much been saying, until this low here gets broken, it's a buy. Now it's been broken, so I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm not looking for that wave 5 up with that bull hidden, because the bull hidden's been taken out. Now I wouldn't be surprised if we get like an A, a B, and a C up in here, a flat. And then if we got a sell set up here, we could look for a sell. You could look for the buy up in this C wave as well. Scalping on the lower time frames at this stage, there isn't a buy setup. We're coming from a low here. So, what I'd be looking for is a buy on the M15. We got a nice impulse down, breaking the low. We're getting all that bullish divergence. So if we got a nice impulse up, a correction, well, and then a buy setup, I could look for a buy. Just for that flat, like I showed on the H4, just for that C up, and then I'd be looking for downside. At this stage, there isn't nothing until we get a nice impulse up, breaking this top, and then a bullish setup. Well, there's nothing to do on this pair until we get this. Until we get this and correction, then you can start to look for buy. And like I mentioned, it's pretty much just a scalp. WTI, very similar to EG. Like I've mentioned, there is a bear. There was a possible bull hidden in here on the lower time frames. I'm going to have to do this count again. But this is looking like we can get some sort of a flat in here. Some sort of an A, a B. Oh, sorry. We get another one up in here, and then we get an A, a B, and a C. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get this up in here, this C up, just breaking that top, even though the hidden divergence hasn't played out, and it's invalid now. Like I mentioned, this was the H4, that ball hidden in here. Well, it's been broken over here, so it's invalidated that possible ball hidden. Looking for this A, B, C here, as you can see. Looking for more downside, but on the shorter term, I'm looking for this C up. And if you're lucky, it does go up and break the top, like I just showed. There's a possibility that it does go up and break the top. There was a bullish setup in here. I'm actually on this one. It's on the lower time frame, but sort of got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got bull hidden in there. That's why I took this to go and break that top. It's really just a scalp, but now if you're not already in it, you'd have to be looking at some sort of a flat in here. But and if you got a little bullish setup in here on the lower time frames, you could look to buy. Sorry, my pen's not working. to change the batteries. Gold, we're waiting for this correction in the wave 4 here before we trade that wave 5 up. You really got to wait for this correction before you look for buys, longer term buys. This stage, there's a sell on it. We had this little flat in here to go up and break the top. It did that. We're getting a nice impulse down now. It's more on the lower time frames. I was looking for an A, B, C in here. I was hoping this would go a little bit further, but it become a contracting flat. And we got like 1, 2, 3. So you really got to wait for a wave 4 and then trade a wave 5 down. More than likely, we'll get a bear hidden in here. Already starting to form a bear hidden in here. So, yeah, I mean, you could scalp the buy, but yeah, then I'd be looking for a sell to go and break the low. I'd be more interested in the sell because I dare say we will get bear hidden in here. At this stage, there isn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do, and then we get another one down. Silver, we already got the 5 up. Got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to that first target. Then we had these 3 down in here, and this was very choppy. So I've been saying, pretty much have to stay out of this. You can see how choppy this was at the low here. Oh, it was actually looking for a WXY, an X2, and a Z down in here because of how choppy this was. And you can see how choppy it is. Starting to get bearish divergence now. We do have a lower low here. So it's really I'll be looking for a wave 4. Like we got 1, 2, 3, wait for a wave 4, and then you can look for a wave 5 down to sell. Bitcoin, we had the 5 up. I had this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, broke the top. It didn't get to our targets like I've mentioned, but it did break the top, so that's all it needs to do. It's coming down quite violently now. It's a sell. If you get a nice correction in here, you could look for a sell. You have to wait for that correction. Sort of have, like I've shown before, we got 1, 2, 3, and I was sort of looking for a wave 4 here, and then a wave 5 down. We got a contracting flat in there. I was looking for a little bit more upside in this move here, but it did fall over. We lost all the bullish divergence, so I'll be looking for a larger correction, and it may be larger than these corrections over here, and then I'd be looking for a sell. So if you're looking for the buy, be careful. More than likely you will get a buy set up, but you're trading in a correction. Really not much on the H1. And even on the M15, you've got to be very careful here. We have a bear hidden, so you've got to be very careful. More than likely this will go, but yeah, get it to break even, protect your position, and just see how far it goes. As soon as you just start to see a reversal, I'd be getting out of it because it's more bearish on the higher time frames with that bear hidden there. S&P 500, been mentioning just to pretty much stay out of this. We got all this bearish divergence. going back from a long time. We're at a top. We got a nice impulse down from a top, but in saying this can really go either way, because this can be an a B, and a C, and go and break the top, and this is a correction in the middle here. It's definitely possible, but you know, me personally, you know, to buy this, I'd want a really nice setup in here on the lower time frames to buy. You'd have to be careful because it may just be 3 up and then more downside. So if you're looking for the buy in here, you definitely want to be at break even at the break of this top, to protect your position. Because like I said, it may go up and break the top, or it can just give you 3 down. 3 up, and then go and break that low. So at this stage, you'd be looking for a buy, and you've got a nice impulse up. The only thing I don't like about this is, you know, we lost the bullish divergence in here. If I go down to a lower time frame, you can see what I'd be looking at. M15, we got the bullish divergence, and we got a nice impulse up from a low. So if we get a correction in here and then a buy setup, well, you know, then you can look for a buy. This can be a flat as well. You know, we got a very choppy wave breaking the top. We got an A, a B, a C. So this can go up and break the top, and we got a flat in here. Very similar to S&P 500. Looks like it's on the M15. And pretty much identical to S&P 500. We got a nice impulse from a low. If you get a bullish setup in here, you can look for a buy. The FTSE, you do have bearish divergence between the two tops. Very risky buying up the top here. There was this bull hidden. Sorry, no, it wasn't a bull hidden. But we've broken the top again, you know, and we're going to get even more bearish divergence. So I'm more interested in a sell, but there is no sell set up on it. And you know, up at these highs, I'm really not interested in a buy. Just looking for a sell for a larger correction. Lastly, the DAX, again, you know, there's more than likely there's more upside in this. We don't have any bearish divergence here, but you got to wait for a correction, and more than likely we'll get a bull hidden in here. And then as soon as we get that and it's confirmed, well, then I'll start to look for a buy. Until that happens, you know, I wouldn't be looking for buys. You got to wait for this correction before you start to look for buys again, unless you're scalping on the lower time frames. But you know, you're buying right at a top. Really not much on this. I mean, if you're looking at this, it's a contracting flat at this stage, so you know, very risky to buy. But you know, you may get a buy setup, a nice buy setup, but I don't see any nice buy setup on this. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed the weekly outlook. If you did, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you out there next week.